Hey everyone, welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm Paul Wadlington. That gentleman is Ian Boyd, and we are excited because fall camp has begun, not only for the Texas Longhorns, but for all the other college football teams. And the smell of cut grass, the heat, all that stuff is starting to come, reminding me of high school football two-a-days. And it's also reminding us that college football is about to start. The best time of the year. Ian, how you doing, buddy?
Good. I noticed in Central Texas, it's the smell of kicked up turf pellets.
Yeah, it is the smell of artificial turf.
Yeah, not a lot of grass.
In the sun.
Not a lot of grass down here.
Things have changed. I miss the old high school football fields that are covered in stickers and broken glass from people drinking there on the weekends and smashing their bottles. And then we get to roll in it. It was always fun when you pick pieces of glass or stickers off of you. Also, when you got to do rolls as punishment, that was always good. Everyone, if you remember doing that in high school, make sure you let us know in the comments. It's a fun rite of passage. Here's another rite of passage that you need to do if you haven't done it yet, and that is join Inside Texas. It is the best conversation about the Texas Longhorns, college football, yay, even sports in general. And then, of course, you know that you need to subscribe and like this channel. If you guys have not subscribed and you find yourselves watching this show or other shows on this channel, just subscribe. It makes all the sense in the world, and it helps us in the magical algorithm get our goodness out into the world. Ian, we're going to deep dive today on something a little bit near and dear to my heart. We're going to deep dive on this, the 2025 Longhorn Football Prospectus, Thinking Texas Football. This amazing picture on the front, of course, is Arch Manning, the guy who's going to debut, the current Heisman favorite, Ian. And what I'm going to do is hand over the reins to Ian, and he is going to probe me and basically find out what are some of the nuggets and some of the things about this Texas football team that people don't know, and the things that they won't know unless they get this here, the Burnt Orange Bible. And even some of the things I'm going to tell you today, as mind-blowing and as amazing as they are, it's only scratching the surface on the insight that I try to offer in this preview. 61,000 words, 150 printed pages. You could buy it right now on Amazon if you want the physical copy. If you want the e-copy and you want to read it right now, go on Smashwords or Apple. So, Ian, I'm going to hand the reins over to your capable hands. Let's, oh, he's got them. I'm ready. Let's go. Steer me wherever you want.
Well, we should probably, for algorithm purposes, start with Arch Manning and quarterback.
Is Arch Manning going to be the quarterback at Texas?
We're pretty sure, unless it's Matthew Caldwell.
Okay.
But so we all know Arch throws bombs.
He does.
He can run, and maybe not so good in like the screen game, right? So it could be a step down from Quinn in terms of quick passes to the perimeter and whatnot.
Not so fast, my friend.
There it is.
In the honor of the great Lee Corso. So, Ian, you are correct, and I'm just going to read straight from the Burnt Orange Bible here. Psalm 5:17. Last year, when he did play, Arch's ADOT, that's the average depth of target, was 11.1 yards per pass attempt. That's getting the ball down the field, because it's not your average completion length. It's where were you trying to target the ball. Quinn Ewers, by contrast, was 7.9. So you're talking about a 3.2 yard differential. That is not inconsequential. That's actually really substantial. So you're absolutely right that Arch loves to throw bombs. And to reinforce that point, he was 8 of 19 on throws 20 plus yards down the field. You might say, well, that doesn't sound great. Well, actually, if you're over 40% on deep balls, that's actually good. And he averaged 41 yards every time he connected on a deep ball. So these weren't 23-yard completions that just barely got over the threshold. But here's the interesting thing.
Sorry, that's like a 50-50 ball, basically.
More or less. And,
if you're hitting it.
And if the upside of a catch is a 41-yard gain, that's a chance we'll take, right? We like that.
That's like nearly an automatic score, right? A drive that has a 41-yard gain is... You're
going to score.
Yeah.
In our case last year, a field goal. But you're going to but you talked about the short yardage game, Ian.
Right.
There already is a hardened perception around Arch that, we'll be better deep. He's more athletic, but we're not going to be quite as efficient in the short game. Not true. Arch Manning was an incredibly efficient passer from 1 to 10 yards. And the reinforcement of that fact, he was 42 of 48 for 384 yards in his appearances. 87.5% completion rate, 8 yards per attempt, which is very good when you consider the risk-reward ratio of throwing a 4-yard ADOT, right? If you're getting 8 yards out of that, that's fantastic. So although it was a limited sample, the truth is Arch Manning in his appearances is a much more effective passer deep, and he's also a much more effective passer between 0 to 10. Does that surprise you?
I mean, actually, it does a little bit that he was that efficient throwing underneath. I suppose he had maybe some perimeter screens that were broken for long gains, but then those might not have counted because those might have been in the 1 to negative territory.
Yeah. So the way they figure it, and I actually like PFF's system in this regard, Pro Football Focus. If they consider that 0 to minus, anything at or behind the line of scrimmage. So the ball has to go beyond the line of scrimmage, 1 to 10. So a lot of that is like little sit down routes.
Yeah.
Against zone, little digs. Maybe the running back runs out in the flat. Arch was absolutely deadly on those throws. You know, another area where he was absolutely fantastic?
No. Well, I know a few, but I don't know which one you're going to say.
The blitz.
Oh, yeah.
So we did struggle at times, Texas fans, you may have noticed, under pressure last year. When teams blitzed Arch, and I think you could probably picture in your head that one extra man blitz from Mississippi State where we had an unblocked guy. By the way, by design, no one messed up. That guy was on the quarterback. And Arch knew, I've got an extra man blitzer coming from the perimeter. If I hang here strong in the pocket, I know DeAndre Moore's in single coverage. And that's exactly what Arch did. He hung in the pocket, took the big hit, dropped a dime to DeAndre Moore down the field for a touchdown. So when blitzed, Arch was 22 of 33 for 350 yards with 5 touchdowns and no interceptions.
Pretty good.
Those stats are so impressive that Ian had to look over his shoulder to see if he was being punked. Like, is that even possible? But yeah, it is.
Am I awake? Am I here? That is some of those numbers are unbelievable. Like, we know that he wasn't facing the best defenses on the schedule.
Yeah.
Although some of those count in some Georgia plays, including some Georgia plays that didn't go well.
Correct.
And it still didn't weigh him down that much. So
no, and what's interesting too about blitzing, and I don't want to like oversell this, but a blitz is a schematic attack on your offense.
Yeah.
In other words, the reason I highlighted Mississippi State having the extra man blitzer that was unblocked, that is something that is transferable to almost any defense we play. Meaning, an unblocked man is an unblocked man if the guy's a scholarship football player playing defense, right?
It was like Stone Blanton or something, right? It wasn't.
Yeah, and you know what?
No.
Stone Blanton running free is just as dangerous as a guy from Ohio State running free. The question is, do you step up in the pocket, take the hit, and deliver a dime? And so that, to me, is the interesting aspect of this. The other part is there is a difference between being blitzed. Blitzes can be picked up.
Correct.
And pressure. Pressure means there's a guy in your face. You're being hit as you throw. You could be getting hit by multiple people as you throw. When Arch was pressured, he was 7 of 16 for 160 yards. So you might say, well, that doesn't sound great, less than 50%. If I shared with you some of the pressure rate efficiency rates that I share in this book about when I do the opponent previews of other quarterbacks, that's actually extremely good. Quarterbacks don't like being hit as they throw, right?
10 yards per attempt.
10 yards an attempt. That's the takeaway at over 20 yards per completion, right?
That means you were getting absolutely wrecked on plays where he was pressured.
That's exactly right. So the point is it's not just the eye test, which is what Ian and I have been arguing for. Like, hey, I understand there's like these talking heads. They're like, Arch Manning, take the last name off his jersey. He's just another guy. Well, one of the eye test tells you something very different. Look how he moves. Look how he throws. Look how he resets in the pocket. Look how he manipulates the pocket. But then there's actually stats that say the real stats, not the BS top line stats that say this is a very efficient, but also YOLO prone quarterback in mostly a good way. We'll see some examples of Arch's YOLO getting him in trouble this year, but you got to take some of the bad with a lot of good.
By the way, those top line numbers for Arch
also good. Yes. For those who don't know, I can give you a quick recap. Last year, he completed almost 68% of his throws at 10.4 yards per attempt. If you're over 10 yards per attempt in college football or any level of football, you're killing it. 9 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. And then, of course, he had 4 rushing touchdowns, including the 67-yard house call against UTSA. How much do you think we're going to run Arch this year?
I think the postseason will put him over 100 carries.
Okay.
Just over. So
how much of that do you think will be scrambles versus called quarterback run game? Obviously, there's going to be some sacks in there.
I used to do these numbers for Hellinger week to week, and
a lot of runs.
Ellinger's highest season, he had 160 carries, which is maybe less than you would think, honestly.
Well, he did have multiple games where he carried it over 20 times, right?
Yeah. Some games it would be so high. I think Arch's scrambles are going to end up being a bigger part of his total, except for like maybe a couple select games where they ramp up the designed carry. So maybe 60-40 scrambles to designers, maybe 50-50.
Interesting.
Do you have a guess on that?
I might invert the 60-40. I think we're going to run in key leverage moments, key big games. I think we're going to run some quarterback power every now and then, especially in red zone, especially on 3rd and 2 on their 38-yard line.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be enabled by the fact that Arch, and the whole premise, I think, in Thinking Texas Football that I try to bring out is that Arch is going to make the field very big in every sense. And the defense is going to feel like they have to cover and protect a lot of ground that maybe they haven't had to protect in Steve Sarkisian's first 4 years. I think you're going to see aspects of Steve Sarkisian's offense that we have not yet seen in year 5, believe it or not.
I think post safeties might guard the post this year. What about in the backfield next to Arch Manning? We know just the other day, I was down in Austin for the media event with all the assistant coaches. And Kyle Flood, like Sark had done at SEC Media Days, made it a point to say, we have Trey Wisner back, the only returning 1,000-yard back in the SEC.
That's right.
They've really been hammering that. And he was, first team, all SEC running back?
I believe he was first team all SEC running back in some of the things I've seen. Yeah, there's multiple lists. So I guess you can find first or second.
Anybody that has stumbled upon this in their feed somehow on YouTube, they already know that Texas's run game is just Trey Wisner, right?
Yeah, well, you'd think so, right? If you're a casual fan. But I think part of the good news of hearing good news about CB4, about obviously Christian Clark coming back from an Achilles tear and apparently being like the same guy, incredibly, is that's going to help bolster the UT running back room, because I think we put a little too great a burden on Mr. Wisner last year. Props to him that he stepped up to carry it. But with Wisner, I think less is more. I still think he's a vital part of the running game. I still think he's a vital part of the offense. But let me give you a couple of stats to help contextualize that. So Wisner averaged 4.7 yards per carry last year. That's the lowest per carry average of a Longhorn lead back since Daniel Young in 2017. Do you remember that 2017 offense by any chance?
I do.
Would you call it a good offense, Ian?
No.
Okay.
No.
And by the way, Daniel Young averaged 4.6.
Yikes. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't want to derail talking about that offense. So please go ahead.
We don't want to get into it. But that was for those who can't remember, it's a freshman Sam Ellinger with like a hodgepodge offensive line, not great receiver options, etc. That was the year that Oklahoma State won the game in Austin, just handing the ball off and then punting over and over. You remember that? Yeah. So Wisner obviously had some great games for us. He also had some really tough games. And I think those tough games accelerated the more of the burden of the offense he had to carry. Now, you don't want to criticize a player for stepping up and carrying what we're asking him to do. But what I'm telling you is Wisner is much less efficient at multiple 20-plus carry games in a row than he is if you can give him the ball 12 to 15 times and share that backfield load. People will say, well, but he's a great pass catcher, great pass receiver. Well, there's a context for that too. I'll just read straight from this. He had 57 passing game targets, which is quite a lot. He averaged 5.5 yards per passing game target. That was the lowest of any Longhorn passing game receiver that crossed the threshold of more than 5 receptions. Meaning it was much more efficient to throw it to Jaden Blue out of the backfield, which kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
It was but Jaden Blue also led us in drops, so I want you to factor that in. Okay.
Did he really? I didn't even know.
He did. Yeah, he had 5. He had 4 of them in the first 3 games of the year. So it was more efficient to throw it to Jaden Blue. It was more efficient to throw it to Jarrett Gibson, Ian. So the fact is, Trey Wisner was not a very efficient passing game target either. So my argument, my contention is, love Trey, awesome leader, going to be a great player for us. Trey Wisner is best 10 to 15 touches a game, not 20 plus, carrying the burden. And then also there's yards after contact. You'll notice that later in the year, particularly after the Aggie game, Trey Wisner added very little to his carries, meaning wherever he got hit, and people could say, well, the blocking wasn't great or whatever. Hey, cool. But then that argument is self-defeating because you judge a running back by what they add to the blocking. So if your contention to me is, well, Trey Wisner is really good when there's big holes, I want you to take a step back and consider what you just said to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So after contact in our biggest games, that's the Georgia SEC title game, Arizona State, Ohio State, 2.6 yards per carry overall. And then yards after contact, the lowest on the team. And people could say, well, what about Clemson? Well, that was a schematic dominance of Clemson's defense. And every single Longhorn runner that carried the ball was super effective. In fact, Jaden Blue led us in rushing in that game.
I wonder how his numbers might have been a little different if he hadn't felt like they had to run some of the tread off the tires too, to your overall point.
Yes.
You can remember specific moments against like Kentucky and A&M where it'd be like, okay, it's going great. Let's give Wisner a break. Backup comes in, fumbles, trips, doesn't pick up yards. Okay, Wisner, get off the bike. We need you to get back in there. There was a degree to which he was the system back, but he was the only back that could execute the system.
He's the only guy we trusted. He was our best. He was one of our best and most willing pass protectors too. Jaden Blue was an extraordinarily bad pass blocker, not only in terms of actually blocking, but not like letting a free guy run right past him and his eyes are somewhere where they shouldn't even be. As a running back on 95% of your protections, inside, out. And Jaden would start off looking outside, and an inside linebacker from Georgia would sprint right past him and nail Quinn. So, again, I'm not criticizing Trey Wisner he stepped up in every facet. He had good ball security. He did what he was supposed to. He ran the routes correctly. He caught the ball, etc. The point is, we still need to upgrade the position and the production of the position for exactly the reason I read you about the 2017 stat, right? Lowest yards per carry of any Longhorn lead back since Daniel Young. So
that's so hard because they had games like Clemson and A&M where they ran for like 300, 400 yards.
They ran at will.
Yeah, at will.
It's true. And then we had some other games where we did not run at will.
Man.
So I didn't want to just entirely put the spotlight on Wisner here, because the good news here is that we are going to have other options here. Jarrett Gibson, CJ Baxter, of course, Christian Clark. We've got other guys who can play for us and I think carry the load. They need to do their part. Unfortunately, it's hard to entirely count on a guy who shredded his knee and another guy who had a partial Achilles tear. But, this fall camp is going to be vital, Ian, because we're going to really find out, can these guys take hits? Can these guys cut the way they should?
Before we move on, it seems like going into spring, there was sort of all right, Jarrett Gibson's chance to take over, right? That was kind of the spring narrative.
Yes.
And then by the end of the spring into the summer, it pivoted to, hey, all y'all know Wisner is the top leading returning rusher in the SEC, right?
Right.
And it seemed like Wisner kind of took over in competition.
Blue, before the season, if you go back and actually read the perception was Blue was going to be a superstar.
Oh, yeah, I thought so. I was like, he figured it out. He learned from Roshan and Bijan.
He didn't perform, and they needed Wisner to fill that gap. And then when they tried to integrate and take some of the load off Wisner with Jarrett Gibson, what did Jarrett Gibson do? Fumbled 3 times on 70-something carries.
Yeah.
You can't do that, man. If you're the closer back, you can't be a fumbler by definition. We satisfied with running back?
Yeah. It seems like there's a chance that Wisner ends up carrying a big load again. Just because he can at least do the job. Even if he's not spectacular. Maybe he is, but
Wisner is the floor of the running back room.
Yeah.
100%. Hey, I'm going to call an audible here.
Oh.
Because we are going to go long on this deep dive because we're getting so many awesome little tidbits and nuggets from my incredible preview, Ian.
Of course.
But I want to talk about a guy who has a high floor and a high ceiling. Look at that. Our producer, he can read me like a book, just like this book. You got to call Gabe Winslow. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. I've looked at every advanced statistic, every metric. He also passes the eyeball test. This is the guy you want doing your home loan. This is the guy you want to refi with. This is the guy you want to go buy your new house with. And even if you're thinking about something 6 months from now, a year down the road, get the process started now. Talk to this guy, get on his radar, and just say, what are your strategies and solutions for my particular situation? You're going to be surprised at the level of nuance and intelligence that he brings to bear on this, probably because he's a former National Merit Scholar, a UT grad, and he's got a law degree. So this guy's really good at what he does. He makes the numbers dance. Put him on your side for the most important purchase that we're all going to make in our lives, buying a house. 832-557-1095.
Speak for yourself, Paul. I've got some Bitcoin, not Bitcoin, that'd actually be worth a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I've got some crypto assets that I'm pretty sure are going to turn the corner here.
You have some Dogecoin.
I have some Dogecoin. No, I don't. Buy a house and it's used, Gabe. All right. Let's stay backfield adjacent. Let's talk about the tight end room.
We're going to talk about wide receivers, aren't we, Ian?
No, we're going to talk about tight ends. I'm in charge now.
Okay, you're the captain now?
I'm the captain.
Are you running for mayor of Minneapolis?
Were you able to did you have any of this? Do you have any of this done before they picked up Jack injuries, or were you able to wait until after that acquisition to really
I waited, baby. So one of the reasons this thing is such a beating and such a thing to write is I wait until the last second. So when you grab Phil Steele and he has Xavier Filsame starting for us, and he has one of the freshman wide receivers penciled in at wideout starting for us, there's a reason. He had to do. They went to publication in May, and then it turns like they didn't proofread until when they did their June release. So I wait until comparatively the last second. I've got a whole 3 paragraphs about our friend Jack Endries and the Cal product. And in fact, I was able to find out some deeper information about Mr. Endries. I'll just leave it at that. That is not public knowledge, and learned about his journey from walk-on at Cal, how that happened. Classic late bloomer tight end, Ian. When you and I did our recruiting breakdown of the positions that hit and don't hit based on stars, we noticed a fascinating dichotomy with tight ends, which was either it's an obvious badass out of high school who hits, or it's some 2-star guy who was 190 pounds as a high school senior, right? And he's from Wyoming. So Endries wasn't quite 190 pounds as a senior in high school, but he was just an overlooked guy. And he was a late bloomer. And he's a guy who kept all of his coordination, all of his athleticism as he kept getting bigger. And he's just got, bottom line on that guy, he's got incredible hands. And he's really good at contested catches. Not contested catches up in the air, not mossing people, but settling into coverage. A linebacker's hitting him and like swatting at the ball in his hands as he's catching it. And he just pulls it in and secures it. He had a really high ratio of contested catches at Cal. And at Cal, he was their leading pass catcher, Ian, for Fernando Mendoza, who's going to be starting for Indiana and Kurt Signetti this year.
Yeah,
he was their leading pass catcher. He was not game planned in their offense very often. The reason he caught the ball so much is because Mendoza knew Jack Endries was going to be exactly where he should be against the coverage. And that's where he'd get checked down to, or that would be the 3rd and 8, like third target that would actually do what he was supposed to do. While the Cal receivers, took 9 seconds of head fakes trying to run their route on the outside. Endries is just super effective, great hands. If you guys watched that Cal Miami game, which was very fun to watch, that Cal hosted Miami and lost a very close game, even despite being up 3 touchdowns late. Endries had a big touchdown down the seam, actually on the sideline, where he went like 50 yards and outran the Miami secondary. That's not his primary game. He's not a speed guy. He's not super explosive, but incredible hands, incredible sense of where to settle into space and present himself to the quarterback.
Like a mini Witten, Jason Witten.
I think that's a good comp. The mini is the key, because Endries is decent size, but he's not a big guy. He's not 6'7", 270.
No. Jeff Banks the other day was saying that he's a physical blocker. Didn't know if he could play in line or not, but that he was a physical blocker. And I heard that, and I was kind of like, well.
I think he's a willing blocker.
He's a definitely willing blocker.
Yeah. He's not going to like pancake a defensive end, probably.
No, not at all. He doesn't. He actually, I noticed a couple times he actually would try to run into contact on like a split zone play. Mm-hmm. And then but it was, I think, because he needed the running start to come out ahead, and he had some whiffs. Whereas like he's not really playing that sound. He's just trying to do what he can. So physical, I think is okay. But Paul, he's probably not going to change the trend at Texas to have capable, not great blockers as the number 1 tight end. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the upside of the more complete tight ends are the younger room. And we're talking about Jordan Washington, who apparently is, remember when his roster weight came out and we were debating, like, this guy's not 260 plus. He's 260 plus.
Yeah.
So don't make me tap the sign, but big framed young elite athletes, what can they do very easily that people struggle to understand?
Gain good weight.
This guy gained 50-something pounds from his high school senior year to coming to Texas to his second year, and all good weight. He's got a huge frame, huge hands. He's got 10.5-inch hands. Did you know that, Ian?
No, it doesn't surprise me just from some of the little bits we've seen of him snagging throws.
So as he learns these skills of blocking, because blocking isn't just about your size or your mass, it's also a skill set.
Yeah.
If you guys follow the NFL, Brent Jones of the San Francisco 49ers, famously an undersized tight end who was known for blocking. I mean, he was a very good blocker at like 230, 235, because he just had great technique. Washington's going to be a guy who can line up in line. And what we mean by in line is hand on the ground, covering the tackle, right? He's got his hand down. He's firing out on somebody. We think Washington will do that once he learns his skills. And then you have the interesting H-back possibilities of Emery Winston. So this group has a really exciting future. I get into some more specifics on some other guys in the room, like Nick Townsend, and why he's so important down the road. But I'm going to save that for your purchase because I don't want to spoil every cool little factoid.
We're currently at a point where each guy in the tight end room probably has some corner of Texas fandom that's like, this guy's going to be the one that breaks out this year.
And that's a good thing.
And they all have a decent case.
Yeah, I don't know how you felt, but the last couple of years, other than the frontline starter, I wasn't super psyched about our tight end room. And now I am.
Yeah. Yeah. What about adjacent to the tight end, next out, wide receiver?
Wide receiver, Ian, skipping around. I like it. He takes control of the agenda. He doesn't care what the agenda says. He wants to go tight end. He's going tight end, and I have to respect it. He's got the reins. I want to talk about a guy that I think, in the words of former President George W. Bush, is being misunderestimated. And that is Emmett Mosley V. You want to talk about Emmett Mosley, the Stanford transfer?
Yeah, I do.
Well,
somebody needs to.
I did a deep dive on him, fitting for the show, and I came up with some stuff that was really interesting. So people see a 3-9 Stanford, and they're sort of like, all right, well, whatever. I guess we went and got a guy, and that's fine. You know, he can help fill in the room. I think this guy may have more upside than we think because he's being portrayed, and he is these things, as reliable, good hands, can find space in zone, number 3 receiver, classic chain mover, third option. He's got a little more juice than we think. Talking about late bloomers and Jack injuries, something about the California and the left coast not having their guys show their true attributes till they get to college. Mosley was 175 pounds as a high school senior. Right now, he's over 200 pounds for Texas. He's also grown about 1.5 inches out of high school. He's 6'2" now. He's got a big body. There recently was a video posted on Inside Texas of him and DeAndre Moore getting some work at night in the facility, running routes and doing stuff with Lacey.
Oh, okay.
Mosley's a big guy. He's a big, strong guy, and he moves a little more suddenly than I think you were led to believe. And here's an example. As a true freshman, think about how hard it is to get on the field and really succeed as a true freshman. Mosley missed the first 3 games of Stanford's season, okay? Still finished with 48 catches. But the last 3 games of the year, can I read you his stat line?
Please. Please do.
26 catches, 332 yards, 5 touchdowns. That includes a 168-yard, 3-touchdown game against Louisville, where Stanford upset Louisville as a 3-touchdown underdog. Mosley was the game MVP. And what you could see was a guy who moved and transitioned from steady, reliable guy. And by the way, he played in the slot predominantly at Stanford. I don't think that's his natural position. And he steadily sort of went from settle into space guy to like stiff arming defenders into the dirt and then sprinting 50 yards down the sideline guy. I think we have a little bit more explosive guy than people are being led to believe by the conventional wisdom.
I wonder if Sark had some old California connections, be like, hey, look into this guy. But they lost their coach too, right? That was part of it. So the portal opened, so everybody kind of scouted them for a minute.
Portal opened. So I don't know if you recall, but right when Stanford's portal opened, I said, hey, here's 5 guys we should look at on Stanford's roster. David Bailey was number 1. We looked at David Bailey. Ultimately, Texas Tech wrote the big check. We made them write a bigger check probably than they wanted. Right. And then Mosley was the second guy that I listed.
Did you name any of the linemen that would go to Oklahoma?
That had already happened before.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, I just think that that's a guy that, it's easy to start off with Ryan Wingo or talk about DeAndre Moore here, and that's fine. And I got lots of information about those guys in the preview, but I wanted to go a little down the list and say, hey, this guy competing with Parker Livingstone for that number 3 job, he might have a little more juice than you're being led to believe.
Here's something I find interesting about the lineup now at tight end and receiver that you just went over, is that you got a guy on the outside that's hopefully a deep play threat and also just to throw him a ball and let him make plays threat in Ryan Wingo. Then you have the same thing in the slot in DeAndre Moore. Then you have always in the right spot, sure-handed guy inside with Jack Injuries. And then you got in the right spot, strong, sure-handed guy on the outside in Evan Mosley, 5th of that name. That's a very balanced set of skill talents. Would it be shocking if Texas leaned a little more into the passing game than we think this year?
No, it won't be. Because, as I said, not only does Arch make the field big, but I think the weapons that he has are going to make the field big. So Isaiah Bond, the theory of Isaiah Bond, obviously the bond market crashed last year. There's nothing we can do about it. But Isaiah Bond, for all of his straight line speed, and it's considerable, right? He's not going over the middle on 3rd and 8 and catching the ball. Just not a feature of the Bond experience. We have multiple guys who will go do that. In fact, 4. So not only are you going to have enough explosiveness, we think, but you're going to have the guys who will make the hard route and take the big hit from the linebacker, stand up and do that and move the chains, and we got a new set of downs. You keep giving Arch Manning and Steve Sarkisian a new set of downs, something bad is going to happen to your defense.
Yeah.
So I said Arch will make the field big. They'll all be the beneficiaries of that, but they're going to help Arch make the field big. And part of making the field big, people always think of the vertical. It's also the horizontal, and it's also the middle of the field. Will you run between those hashes where it's crowded on 3rd and 8 and take a big shot and then pop up and go, first down, let's go?
But Paul, how will they do in protecting Arch to make these throws? Isn't the offensive line kind of starting over with a bunch of new starters? What's the skinny on the not so skinny people on the Texas offense?
Well, we actually do have a skinny guy starting for us this year, comparatively speaking.
That's true. Yeah.
Trevor Gooseby, he's got a flat belly, even though he's like 310 pounds. I think the skinny is going to be interesting on the big fellas. We do have a little bit more experience probably than your conventional national previews are telling you. What they're telling you is that Texas has only one returning starter in DJ Campbell. If you're a Texas fan, you know that that's not exactly accurate. We know that Cole Hudson has started 13 games for Texas. He's appeared in 38 others and effectively was a rotation player last year. So him taking over at center, I really consider that sort of a returning starter, at least in terms of experience. And then Trevor Gooseby, who interestingly there's some random like sports accounts showing that anyone can have an opinion, right? Love this country, who are like, Trevor Gooseby is the weakness of this Texas offensive line. Trevor Gooseby, who's likely to be a 1st or 2nd round NFL draft pick at the conclusion of the year. So to refresh you on what Gooseby was asked to do last year, we did not just have injuries to Cam Williams. We also had an injured Kelvin Banks. I think people have forgotten that. So Trevor was asked to start at both left tackle and right tackle in different games. And were those games against Colorado State, Ian? No.
They were very non-ideal games to start.
Really tough environments. Either
maybe the 2 worst possible environments.
The worst possible environments, right?
Maybe.
At A&M.
Yeah.
playoff games against Georgia and the SEC title game. Those are the games that he started, multiple playoff games. I mean, high stakes games. And guess what level of competition he faced in those games at the edge?
Some dudes, some NFL dudes.
Georgia just had 2 guys drafted in the first round of the NFL draft. Texas A&M had 2 edges, Shamar Stewart and Nick Scourton, who were high draft picks at A&M. And Clemson, of course, has TJ Parker, who some people are talking about is going to be 1-1 in the upcoming, when he becomes draft eligible. That's who Gooseby faced. Let me give you some stats. Are you interested?
Yeah. You know,
He's sitting on the edge of his chair. Oh my God. Ian, calm down. Ian, seriously, calm down. In 319 snaps, he yielded 5 pressures, 1 penalty. That's a little different from Cam Williams there.
Yeah.
And no one ever touched the quarterback when he started from his guy. So 5 pressures, 1 penalty. No sacks, no quarterback hits. As a pass blocker, only Kelvin Banks was more effective and more efficient given the opponent level that he was facing. So if you think that he's going to do really well against TJ Parker and Nick Scourton, but he's going to struggle against Arkansas's edge, that's a take. I mean, I'll give it to you. That is a take. But this is a guy who is absolutely blooded in the most possible horrible environments, and he came up big. There's huge reasons to think that left tackle is going to be a big strength for the University of Texas.
I suspect that the only Arkansas Razorback edge that gets anything over on him this year
is Brad Spence.
Will be the one he's facing in practice, who just moved to Buck. Yeah, Brad Spence.
Our edge room is nasty, by the way. I know we're just talking offense today, but holy cow.
Some people have been saying, like, you know, it's an advantage that Texas has that their offensive tackles are going up against these edges in practice. I think it's an advantage that the coaches are going to have no misconceptions about how good they are. I don't know if it's developmentally good for a young guy learning to go backwards.
You just get your ass beat.
To get destroyed.
Yeah. Well, it's
I remember in college, I could not play Halo with my buds or Call of Duty is even way worse, until I played on my own to build up enough of a skill set to not just be dying immediately every 5 seconds.
Yeah. I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but related to this, Hugh Freeze caused a little bit of a furor at SEC Media Days because he said, I'm making our defense lay off on Jackson Arnold in practice and scrimmages because I want Jackson Arnold to be super confident. You know, playing at OU wrecked his confidence. So, you know, there's a fine line, right? And some people are like, oh my God, that's terrible. And then interesting, like Greg McElroy, guys like that, who are former quarterbacks, are like, no, actually that makes sense. You know, you want him to understand the offense and not just get wrecked before he even has a chance to go through his progressions. So, yeah, I think developmentally it probably is a good thing. And our coaches aren't dumb. They understand that Nick Brooks shouldn't be judged by how he does against Colin Simmons. But by the way, we'll have no illusions about the quality of our offensive tackles going into the fall. I'll tell you that much.
Not on that side. There was one point this offseason where it came out that they were maybe not super high on how many guys they had in the room that could play tackle. And part of me was like, might some of these guys be a little better than you think? But the third string edges are like Lance Jackson and
Zeno Zulu taking snaps against you. Yeah.
Colton Vosnick and whatever. So, yeah.
Well, Ian, we have talked about the offense through the perspective of this prospectus. And you may have noticed Michael Taff on the back here celebrating with the golden hat.
Yes.
There's a lot we haven't covered. There's a lot that's still remaining in this book. And I would just encourage folks that if you want to have the most up-to-date, best, and most compelling information about this football team and all the other teams in the SEC and the defense, there's 61,000 words, 150 written pages, and a lot of interesting little nuggets. I just gave you a small handful. That's the hard sell on the 2025 Longhorn Football Prospectus, Thinking Texas Football.
And there's a lot in there on defense too that we'll get to next week, unless something momentous happens in fall camp, which I almost don't want to happen because that's usually not a good thing if something really newsworthy happens in fall camp.
I was going to knock on wood, but I also realized my dogs who are laying at my feet all around the room would go insane. So I'm glad I restrained myself from knocking on. Oh, come on. They might hear it.
Oh, because the door knock?
Yes.
Oh, well, it looks like we got through it.
All right, Ian, are you handing the reins back to me, or do you like this feeling of power?
Go ahead and take us home.
Okay, I've got the reins. Here we go. And this will be short and sweet. We're going to sprint home like we're on a thoroughbred. This has been Ian Boyd. I am Paul Wadlington. This has been the deep dive on this here periodical and our Texas Longhorns. Fall camp has started. Let's get fired up. Show us in the comments. Show us in the likes. Show us in the subscribes how much you like this video. Make sure you send it to others. This is the place to be to talk about the Texas Longhorns. For Ian Boyd, I'm Paul Wadlington saying, hook 'em, y'all.